Friends, Romans, Springfielders, lend me your ears. We have another brand new edition of Culture Reads 2020. Those of you who've been able to tune in to our other episodes, you might know that we are having some ongoing discussions about the exciting project that is underway here in our community called Culture Reads 2020. We have a variety of people who have taken part in some book studies over the past few months. These are still unfolding, and I'll tell you here at the end of our video about a way that you might be able to get involved. Today, we have a very special guest with us. We have Adam Banks. Hello, Adam. Welcome back. Now, we had a chance to talk last month, Adam and I did. Perhaps you saw that episode posted on Facebook and or YouTube. If you don't mind, remind our listening audience, what book did you select for Culture Reads 2020?
Yes, I'm reading along with my congregation, First Baptist Church, How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi.
Wonderful. How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. Thank you for sharing that. Now, at this point, I know last time we talked, you had just gotten started reading the book. At this point, you've had a chance to read some more. And so before we get into a few specific questions here, are there any insights or things that are jumping out to you at this point? Just maybe a few key ideas that are standing out in your mind as your study is unfolding with your congregation.
Yes. So this book is packed with information. I think facts that are articulated in a way that one can easily consume and not become overwhelmed, but also just insights that are new or freshly communicated to the audience. But I think just the foundational idea of what racism is, and how one can be either racist or anti-racist at any moment. That is not a fixed or a static state, but somewhat dynamic in the way that one chooses to be either committed to efforts of justice and equality for all people, or one chooses to remain ignorant or complacent or complicit in what is already established. And then going a little deeper with this idea is what it is to be racist or anti-racist. It's when one chooses to either support or fight against policies that are rooted in situating an entire group of people based on their race at an advantage or disadvantage. And so being an anti-racist is to be committed to dismantling improperly built structures or policies, so that in this situation, those who are marginalized, those who are disenfranchised, and especially Black people, historically in the United States of America, can be treated as human, having their entire humanity, our entire humanity, acknowledged and celebrated. That's a big part, foundational thought of this book. But also, there are debates and arguments regarding if Black people can be racist, and there are phrases such as reverse racism, or he lifts up in the book anti-white racism. And I think some of these notions that he discusses, again, in that digestible manner, in a way that it challenges, but also allows one to embrace it, to be able to access what's really there, what he's really laying out. The ways in which Black people can be racist, or the ways in which Black people can be actively involved in anti-white racism. I found these ideas, these notions, very interesting, and I respect the way that he lays this out. Yeah, very very intriguing. Very intriguing.
Well, I appreciate your personal insights there, and you've given both a compelling description of the message of the book, but also a compelling call to the type of work that we're trying to do here in our community through Culture Reads and other efforts like it. Some of our earlier conversations with some other guests, we pointed out that racism is not just limited to one end of the political spectrum. Racism is not just limited to generationally between young or older people. It's helpful for me to hear too. It's not just a matter of being a member of a particular ethnicity or a particular racial group. That these are all matters that we can reflect on personally and how we might individually perpetuate racism, but also how we might feed into some of those larger systemic issues as well. I have a kind of a follow-up question about that, and so I'm going to look at my page here for a moment, everybody, because I want to make sure I get the quote right. Now, once again, this is not a direct quote from the book, but the idea here is drawn from the book, "How to Be an Anti-Racist." That's the title of the book. It's one of the books selected by our selection committee. Uh, Dr. Kendi points out in the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, inequities between light and dark African Americans can be as wide as inequities between black and white Americans. So I'll say that again. The disparity or the inequity between light-skinned or dark-skinned African American people may be equal to or similar to the disparity between white and black Americans. He talks about this concept of colorism. Would you mind just describing this idea? What is this idea of colorism, and how might that manifest?
Yeah. So colorism is this phenotypical representation or reflection of the dynamic, vibrant, beautiful skin that Black people can have. Historically, it being viewed as sometimes as being able to pass, and that notion is connected with having more fair skin or lighter skin, and he talks about blue vein societies and the ways in which the members of the Black community or Blacks, the way in which their access for resources and advantages in society is greater than those of darker skin. And with those of darker skin, they're often likened to beasts. They are dehumanized. Again, this is a historical precedent with roots in slavery in the antebellum South. But these ideas are present within the Black community itself. The ways in which lighter skinned Black people may be rejected from Black circles because they're not Black enough, or it can go the other way. The ways in which darker skinned Black people can be rejected because they're too Black. And so there's this larger societal um, implication of this idea of colorism, but then there, just in the Black community, the ways in which people are cast off or rejected, based again on their phenotype, the way in which their skin reflects a beauty. And so Ibram Kendi is speaking about to be anti-racist is to be committed toward celebrating the beauty and not having a particular standard within the Black community. What Blackness is or what Blackness is not. You're too light, so you're not Black. You're too dark, so you're too Black. You almost something else completely, and this is garbage. But to celebrate, to honor, to respect the humanity and the beauty of every person. You asked how I might have seen this,
Right.
and he brings up in the book Spike Lee's School Days.
Oh,
And
yes.
this is a film that has it really highlights and presents it somewhat as a satire, this idea of colorism, on the campus of HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, and the ways in which some he really highlights it in Greek life, some sororities or fraternities being more open and having certain stereotypes or just general thoughts or ideas about them. So the pretty and the elegant and the illustrious sorority is the more light skinned sorority. And then on the other side, the more hardcore, abrasive, in your face is the dark skinned sorority. And again, he artistically portrays this through satire, just showing how ridiculous this is in the way that we treat one another. But a more contemporary example um, is I watched this morning show, or I listen to and then watch also on YouTube, The Breakfast Club.
Oh, yes.
And it has these amazing anchors, just very wise, very smart. But two of them, one of them DJ Envy and then Charlemagne the God, and they're good friends and they love each other. But one thing is that Charlemagne the God is always joking and poking at DJ Envy for being light skinned, and he pokes at him. He calls him beige. He calls him yellow, high yellow, and these have historical significances. But these ideas um, have real life implications in the community, especially when there's not a tight relationship like that which is established between these two. Um, this lighter skin being associated with more sensitivity, more subduedness, um, and again, there's a notion of you must not be black. And with DJ Envy and Charlemagne is constantly calling him Puerto Rican or Hispanic or something like that. And again, he's teasing him. He is joking, but there is that idea underneath of being pushed off based on that, and then also this social media. Um, light skinned people be like, light skinned dudes be like, and there are these different stereotypes uh, that are ridiculous, and that further division. And then dark skinned dudes be like, and again, this idea of abrasiveness or more violent or more threatening, or even having to do with hygiene. It's again absolute ridiculousness and garbage. But these are real life manifestations of what he is talking about in the book, and ways in which all people must be committed in an anti-racist effort so that all people's lives are celebrated, all people's humanity is respected. Um, and in that way, humanity itself thrives all the more.
Hmm. Well, I appreciate that. Not only a description of the key ideas there of what Dr. Kennedy's referring to, but just this exhortation for all people to be about this work is yeah, very inspiring to me personally, as I've been trying to do what I can to check my own assumptions. And so I appreciate your insight there, Adam. Thanks for sharing. Um, it's one thing to talk about on the individual level, individuals, people, the way that we might treat a neighbor, the way we might talk to or choose not to talk to an individual person. But a lot of times, the individual practice is separate from things like policy. A lot of times, our implicit individual biases or prejudices, they can feed into the ideas that go into our systemic structures with things like policy. And so, the next question here, if of course, I could speak with you all day, Adam, and hear about your insights about the book, but I want to respect your time. The next book here is about some of Dr. Kennedy's research as it pertains to policy. And so let me just tell you what's on this page here. It says, according to Kennedy's research, there's a stronger and clearer correlation between levels of violent crime and unemployment levels than there is between violent crime and race. So I'll say that again. There's a stronger correlation between violent crime and unemployment than there is between violent crime and race. But often that's not the message that our policymakers choose to tell. I just want to get some insight from you about that. How might our society and culture change if, uh, or rather, what are some considerations here, I guess, in regard to some potential changes? If we're characterizing dangerous Black neighborhoods as opposed to dangerous unemployed neighborhoods, could you just speak a bit about some insights related to policymaking and how the story that we choose might factor into that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a lot. That's deep. That's deep.
Yes, of course. In a 15-minute conversation, we're going to cover that whole time. We're just scratching the surface, of course, but I appreciate your insights that you might share.
And I like the connection, the way that you led into this, and it made me think about a quote that is attributed to Christopher Wallace. That is notorious B.I.G. Biggie Smalls. We can't change the world until we change ourselves, and this connection between our own individual ideologies, our individual um, thoughts and values, priorities, and the way that those are connected with the larger society and larger systems. That they are very much so connected to one another. Um, and that just brought that to mind for me. And this late but great philosopher, rapper, artist, um, having insight on that. But I think when it comes to policies connected with violent crimes and the ways in which that has been uh, wrongly attributed to um, black neighborhoods or black communities, um, one thing that he highlights is the way in which uh, policy policy makers and the majority of those in positions of power and influence having to do with policies, um, resembling those, or mostly being white people, and white people, or the way in which historically policies have been established strategically in order to protect personal interests, personal priorities, and to cement one's own, if not actual, then at least their feeling, um, their sense of security. And so this way of labeling violent neighborhoods as black neighborhoods, I believe further cements, and I mean he articulates it better than I can. It further cements or increases that sense of security for those in positions of power, for those who are establishing these policies, and in order to cement, to solidify that security, labeling it as something that does not reflect white people. It's disconnected from. However, uh, he highlights, points to fact, that reliable studies and all of that show that it has to do with unemployment. It has to do with access to resources. It has to do with reliable education. It has to do with so much more. And he talks about the way in which racist policies don't only hurt uh, those who are not white. They don't only hurt black people, but the this shows how so clearly it hurts um, poor people, or unemployed people, or people without access of other racial backgrounds, other ethnic backgrounds, but also white people who are unemployed, white people without access to resources that we all deserve access to. And so I believe that if there was a shift, there would not only be a benefit for black people, but there would be a benefit for white people. There would be a benefit for all people in the way in which access is granted in the way in which the potential of people is more likely to be realized in the way in which humanity, once again, all of who I am, and all of who you are, and all of who you are, and all of who we are, is able to grow and blossom as we can have access to health services, or as we can have access to good, meaningful, reliable, transformational education, as we can have access to clubs and organizations that help us explore our passions, our gifts, our skills, and again just grow as the people that we are. If there could be a shift, um, then not only Black people, not only minorities, but all people would benefit from this, and then also believe that there's a correlation also with just violent crime. That violent crime that might be overlooked, that might not immediately rush into the headlines, that occurs in white neighborhoods or occurs in neighborhoods that aren't predominantly Black, but how those violent crimes will decrease in other neighborhoods as well. Uh, just leading to better better life and liberty and pursuit of happiness, the things that we're supposed to be about as a country. And so I think there are tremendous benefits to there being a shift in the way that this is articulated, and the approach, again, the implementation of policies that have real life implications in the lives of so many people, all people.
Our brief dialogue today has been rich and dense with ideas, a wealth of ideas in there. So much so it feels almost like a disservice to limit our time to just a little 15-minute conversation. But remember, everyone, if you're listening to Adam share and these concepts resonate with you, these are things you want to explore some more. The goal of this conversation is to give you a little bit of a synopsis, a taste of some of the ongoing conversations happening throughout the community. Of course, How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi is one opportunity. You could read that book just as Adam has. Could you do me a favor? Could you give us that Notorious B.I.G. quote one more time? Can't change the world unless we change ourselves. Thank you for sharing that. I've got one more question for you while I've got you here. There might be some people listening in who are curious about the topic. They're interested in what we're talking about, but they're not quite sure if they want to get involved in a book study like this or Culture Reads 2020. Do you have any words for anybody who might be on the fence about maybe stepping out for the first time and trying a book study like this? Anything you'd like to share on that front?
Well, that sentiment, that little bit of interest there, I say, go with it, explore it. Get a little taste. You might be interested in that dish, and it's like, I don't know, do I want to try it? Do I not want to try it? Go ahead and get a taste and see. And we all have the freedom to continue to eat or not. No, don't want to force anything down anyone's throat. Nothing like that. But to just see, and I believe that if you try, whether it's this book or one of the other books, that exposing ourselves to new ideas, to different perspectives, just allows us to grow as just as individuals, as who we are. But also it allowed us to have empathy. I mean, it increases our opportunity for more empathetic thinking and action. And so please do give it a shot, whether it's this book or one of the other books. This is good. This is good, and your initial interest is good. It's great.
Thank you so much, Adam. Adam Banks with us from First Baptist Church. I'll tell you what I've told all my guests so far. I could literally talk with you all day on this topic, but of course, I want to respect your time and also the time of our viewers. So thanks so much for being with us today to talk about this and for your ongoing leadership in our community here in Springfield. Thank you for that.
Thank you for
Again, Adam talked about the book How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. The other two books that our Culture Reads 2020 committee have selected are White Fragility, that's by Robin DiAngelo. Also, we have a book called Me and White Supremacy. That one is by Layla Saad. And of course, those are the three books available, but you could always, there are a wealth of resources out there. If you're interested in a book study and one of those books, perhaps you've read them already, perhaps they don't quite capture a specific topic you'd like to focus on, there is certainly nothing wrong with you selecting a book with your group of friends on the topic of race or some sort of a cultural consideration. So by all means, feel free to check out a wealth of resources. I have great news. It's not too late to become involved in Culture Reads 2020. You can still jump in and be a part of this book study. There are two primary ways that you could get involved. The first one involves the Clark County Public Library. Our generous funders have provided some free copies of the books that we mentioned. Now, depending on availability, you'll want to check with the reference desk to figure out what books are available, but you can certainly take those resources and make use of them. Keep in mind, now in the age of COVID-19, with the spike we have seen recently with the virus, Clark County Public Library is doing curbside service only. So if you want to take part in the resources there at the library, be sure to call ahead. You want to get in touch with the reference desk. Also, keep in mind, I bumped the microphone. Sorry about that, viewers. I might have blown out your eardrum. Sorry about that. Keep in mind that the books that we have available for Culture Reads 2020, they're being kept separate from the general circulation of the books there. So ask specifically for those books. They are set aside. Culture Reads 2020, the reference desk can help you. Secondly, you could get on the internet. You could go to springfieldohio.gov/culturefest. That's springfieldohio.gov/culturefest. Our Culturefest page has been a place where we've put together all the information about Culture Reads 2020. You could read more about the project. You could watch a video. You could also sign up to be a part of it. Keep in mind, over the next couple of months, we're going to be having some book discussions with the goal of widening our perspectives. One last thank you to Adam Banks, our guest. Thanks so much for being with us. And as we conclude our time, I must mention our generous sponsors who have made this project a possibility for all of us. I want to thank the sponsors of Culture Reads 2020. I'm talking, of course, about the generous folks over at the Springfield Foundation, First Energy Foundation, Southfield Village Apartments, the Clark County Public Library, and our fair city of Springfield, Ohio, including viewers like you. Thanks again for tuning in. Keep an eye out for us in December. About mid-December, we'll do some more episodes with some additional guests talking about our book studies. In the meantime, wear your mask, wash your hands, and stay safe. We'll see you next time.